You can watch Arsenal versus Burnley and Man City versus Crystal Palace on Now TV for just €10. So what's stopping you? Putting up more Christmas decorations? Your house already looks like Santa's grotto. A family party? Your Aunt Mary has seen you 4 times this week already. Don't let anything get in your way. To treat yourself to a Now TV Sky Sports Day Pass and watch the games that matter to you for just €10, search Now TV Football today. Content streamed by internet. Full terms at nowtv.com.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are the podcast you're looking for. This is...
So we have now all seen officially The Last Jedi, and this is a late time of the day, and we're all getting sleepy, but we got to share our initial thoughts because that's what we do on Coffee with Kenobi. And Kaylee Gross is here with us, and we wanted to see what Kaylee thought before any of us weighed in.
So, Kaylee, tell us what your first impressions of the movie are. It's the first time you've ever been to a opening night, so it's a late night. And what are your first thoughts about the movie?
I thought it was unexpected, but it was really interesting too.
So tell me something that you thought was, and remember to keep it kind of general. Don't give us any details because we're not ready for that yet for our listeners. But tell us something that you thought was a character that you thought was kind of surprised you.
I think porgs and how they interacted with Chewie. It was kind of I feel like they got in his way a lot.
Oh yeah,
yes, they did. It's like having a new puppy,
which you would know something about.
It's true.
Yeah.
And did you think the porgs were treated? Was that how you wanted them to be, or did you want something different?
I think that's how I wanted them to be.
Yeah. They were insanely cute.
And Kaylee, were there more of them than you were expecting, or not enough, or how did that fall for you?
There were way more than I expected.
Yeah, they're kind of all over the island, aren't they?
Yeah.
Kaylee, what part of the whole movie surprised you the most?
Towards the ending, kind of what happened. I don't really know how to word it.
No, I know what you're saying. The big finale.
Yeah.
I would agree. There was a lot of this movie that was very unexpected. So it's definitely going to be worth extra looks, I believe.
Oh, yes, for sure. This definitely does not feel like a Star Wars movie.
So, Kaylee, was there any other just thoughts about Star Wars or anything about the evening with the pomp and circumstance of a long line and a sold-out theater that you have in your mind?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, it is a late night, so maybe the brain is overwhelmed, kind of like mine is right now.
Yeah, me too. I agree.
I just have to say it was so much fun to have Kaylee at the movie with us, and so I look forward to seeing it with her and again. And anything else, Kaylee?
No, I think that's it.
Thank you so much. All right, gentlemen, I have been looking forward to this for a few days now, though it seems like an eternity. You've both seen The Last Jedi, and Cory, initial thoughts?
Yeah, I'm still trying to process, but overall, I did like it. I think I'm trying to process is because it was unexpected. That for me, I was going in with some preconceived notions of what I wanted to happen. Some questions to answer, and they did get answered, but it was unique because it was unlike what I had placed in my mind, but still I enjoyed it because there's so much going on. I mean, it's so meaty, I guess, right? I mean, there's so many. There's still, I don't want to say there's so many questions, but there's a lot of things that are now cemented as far as these new characters, and obviously Luke and returning characters and new characters as well. I was really surprised and overjoyed by how much I really love them. So, I mean, overall, I really liked it a lot. It was fun. I'm still trying to process. I was just telling my wife, I got home just a few minutes ago, and she's like, "Well, what do you think?" I was like, I liked it. Yeah, I liked it a lot. It's great. It was fun. And then I kind of trailed off, and she was like, "Well, was it okay?" Like, I was like, "Yeah, I'm just overloaded. I'm just, after, I think I told her, I said, after so much hype and so much excitement and, you're building into everything, and then finally you get to see it. There's like a moment of like, finally I can, talk, like even for you, Dan, you said you can talk about it. You can, come to grips with it a little bit, especially with all these heavy themes going on and these heavy, just circumstances and scenes and characters. It's just, it's crazy.
It took me a few hours after I saw it as I was driving home. I had to wait until I almost got home before I wanted to record because I just wanted to sort of let it kind of drip through my mind a little bit. I know exactly what you mean because as we left the theater, our middle son turned to me and he said, "Wow, that wasn't like any Star Wars movie. It didn't feel like a Star Wars movie at all." And I think that is certainly a really honest, astute observation. It's how I feel. Tom, what are your initial thoughts on this amazing film?
Yeah, I'm really stunned, and I'm going to reflect a lot of what you said, Cory and Dan. I was thinking about on the way home as I was kind of decompressing with Kaylee and kind of answering some of her questions that are actually a lot of the questions that I have, and I don't know how you kept silent. And your vigil in recording must have been amazing because how you got 4 days without being able to say a word to anybody. But I think where it's settling with me at the moment was just all of the different levels that this film kind of threw at us, and I felt like I was kind of climbing a ladder through the whole thing. It was not a ride for me. It was a ladder climb, and just one thing led to another, but it wasn't easy. And the new characters were nothing like what I was expecting. Without saying anything about the character itself, I'll just say Benicio del Toro's character kind of blew me away.
Really?
Yeah, that character has been in my mind and well, I mean, I'll probably be able to say more about it next week, but I don't know. I feel like, in the pre-show, I talked so much about the trailers and how I felt like they tried to lead us to think something. And I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know what they were trying to tell us other than just giving us some highlights to chew on for a while. I don't know that those trailers led me to think any one thing or another, because now post-viewing, wow, my brain is a little mushy at the moment.
I will say that had I known then what I know now, I wouldn't have watched the second trailer.
Oh, really?
Because I think there are certain key moments, like with Kylo and his tie silencer, or just some of the things they make you sort of think or try to lead you a certain direction. It wasn't right, but it wasn't wrong either. And I would have rather just sort of been a little bit surprised, because when certain things happen, I just thought, oh yeah, well, I kind of thought that's where they're steering us, but I didn't think it would actually, like Luke says, this is not going to go the way you think. And that is true. That is 100% true. Yes. I really like that ladder analogy that you said, Tom, because when I watched this was of all the times I've seen Star Wars movies, and we've all seen all the Star Wars movies a million times, this was the most consistently that I was kind of grabbing my armrest, like white knuckled, because I was in constant dread for all the characters. I didn't think anybody was safe. I mean, and really, you didn't know who was going to survive, and
even the bad guys.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I feel like, and there's total peril, and I had more highs and lows emotionally. I gasped, and I'll share more about that next week when more people have seen the movie and we can talk about it a little more openly. I gasped out loud. I grabbed my chest a few times. I cried. I laughed. I clapped and cheered. I mean, this was an event. This was a visceral amazing experience. As I've said in the review, and I hope people will read the review now that some people have seen the movie, this takes Star Wars in ways I never thought I wanted or needed, but this has made it more mature and more powerful, and it means more. It's got that beautiful innocence and joy, but it's also very mature and heavy. Star Wars is now an art form instead of something that we love. It's true cinematic art now, I think, because of this movie.
Well, it's a couple of things that stuck out to me too, and you made the line that Luke had, it's not going to go away. You think was just straight from the trailer. That's exactly that line is a through line the entire film. It's not going to go the way you think. And that's exactly what it's meant to be. I mean, I think so. I'm realizing this now. And I also like the ladder analogy. You're climbing each ladder rung, hopefully going to reach the top, the pinnacle of what's going to happen. And all you're going to get is just a drop off at the end, kind of. It's interesting because I think Star Wars, you said, is an art form, Dan. It's always been an art form, right? I mean, it's always been beloved. It's always been, these creators who work on these things. I keep thinking about the director of the film. Help me out,
Ryan Johnson.
Thank you, Ryan Johnson. And I kept thinking, like, man, this guy has got so much on his shoulders, but he wrote and directed the film, and it was obviously a passion for him to do this. I mean, and to me, that is an art in itself. When it's a passion of something you have, it's an art. It's more than just a commercial piece of item trying to sell a product. It's something you put your heart and your soul into, and I can definitely see those come through this film. I mean, there's just so much here, and obviously, without talking a whole lot of huge spoilers and stuff, it just comes in spades. They toss you all over the different aspects of the Star Wars galaxy, the different types of films and the callbacks and just everything. I'm still trying to grip onto that ladder.
Do you know what I mean about it being an art form? It's not that it wasn't. I mean, obviously it's art. It's been nominated for Oscars. It's great, but I mean, this is more like the Picasso of Star Wars. I see. So this is a different. This is a different genre. This is a different Star Wars genre than any of the existing movies. And Rogue One kind of walked that line a little bit, but it's just heavier. There's more cost. It takes itself more seriously, and it presents itself more seriously. This isn't just like a callback to the serials of the 30s and 40s and Flash Gordon. This reminds me of Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point too, because you said like nobody was really safe. You're all on the edge of our seats, and now that we like I said, the Force Awakens introduces these characters. Now we can really get into the meat and potatoes of what's going on and what's moving forward. And here you made a good point, Dan. I like the way you said that. It being, it's not playing around. It's just not for a fun time in the theater to go see a fun popcorn movie. This is a heavy-handed piece of work. And now the more I think about it, you're right. I mean, they're not trying to just get you in butts and chairs. They're telling a story that's impactful to these characters and impactful to the audience and the fans.
Yeah, when I think about all the interviews they'd been done with Daisy Ridley and John Boyega and Mark Hamill, how many of them said, now it all makes sense. So many of them said, this is not what was it they were saying? They said, this is not the story that we thought. This is not the story that we thought we were going to be portraying. And wow, I mean, I indeed see that. And, Dan, going back to your idea of, Star Wars as an art, I think it's interesting that, I wasn't listening when John Morris was on the air with you, but I know before we got on the air at the theater, how he was talking about how appropriate it is that Star Wars is opening at the Riverfront Museum because, film is an art. Film is more than just, entertainment. And you're absolutely right. It was a beautiful movie. Never felt comfortable, and we've sort of been raised on a Star Wars, and my intent here isn't to simplify, but since we don't want to go into details, we've been raised on a Star Wars where I kind of just always figured the rebellion would continue to win and the Empire would continue to take the punches, but I did not walk away. I did not walk away with that feeling tonight.
Yeah. That's a good point, Tom. I like that. And the other thing that I felt too is like there are so many moments in this film that I was like, okay, they're going to cut the credits now. And there's just these jaw-dropping, like heart-wrenching moments that you're like, oh, they're going to stop it right here. And they continue more, even more, piling on more, different types of exposure to characters or continuing the story on just a little bit more. I kept thinking like, oh my gosh, how much are they going to really give us here, And it's crazy. I mean, just I don't know. I'm trying not to spoil it for any folks who are watching. And I want to say a shout out to Dan again. You said, Tom, kudos to you, man. You did a great job of having seen it 4 days early. And I didn't have any inclination of what was going on. I had a great attitude going in. I felt comfortable. And to hold it in for 4 days is incredible. So I think your exposure to secrets is definitely out right up there with the Store Group.
Well, thanks, dude. It was
good.
I'm glad.
Honestly, man, this is
seriously.
It was so important to me that things weren't spoiled. I said to all my students, I said to all my friends, I said to all of my Star Wars friends and family, you guys, please don't go online. You will regret it forever.
Yep.
I mean, there are certain things that happen, especially in the middle of this film, that were just so wonderful and so surprising. And I'm really, really grateful that Rian Johnson loves Star Wars because he basically made the ultimate Star Wars fan film. And I don't think this gives away too much. This is a Luke Skywalker film I wanted my entire life, and I got it.
Wow. Yeah.
I think Hamill deserves an Academy Award nomination for supporting actor. I really do. For all of the foibles, people would give him a hard time about A New Hope or blah, blah. He was a teenager in that movie, and that's how teenagers act. I am around them every day when I teach. This is how they act. And it just showed his range and his emotion, and it wasn't cheesy or cornball. It was stellar. I mean, I think he anchored this film. He was brilliant. I'm very, very high on this movie, as you can, and I'm also I'm extra gushing because I've been dying to talk to you two about it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I'm sure people are just going to. To me, this is the thing. Parker, I talked about it. Came with us. When he was a kid, he loved Star Wars. Now it's just like, whatever. It's a thing that I like, and he knows my obsession with it. But I heard him talking about it with his mom, and he was saying, I can't imagine anyone not liking this movie. I don't think you need to know anything about Star Wars to understand it or to think it's cool. And I think that's awesome. I think this movie is going to benefit from that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting too because we talked about in the car ride home. Is it right for younger kids to see? I've got younger kids. My oldest is 12. And you mentioned too earlier in our discussion here. It's right up there with Rogue One with those heavy moments, big character development, and it's not messing around. I mean, maybe Rogue One was kind of the offshoot of like, hey, let's try some things here with this storyline, and let's see how the audience reacts and kind of go from there to kind of counterweight what's going to happen. I'm going to take my kids to go see it because I think it's worth seeing in theaters, and obviously they want to see it. It's an important film, I think, for the Star Wars saga and a Star Wars fan. So I'm curious to know, Tom, too. You took your daughter. We heard from her earlier, and coming across as a father, how did you feel about that?
Oh, I'm so thrilled that she was there with us tonight. And there are some pretty mature moments of this film that, she put her head in my arm and she squeezed my hand probably as hard as I squeezed hers. In fact, on the way home, I said, "Did I ever hurt you? Did I hurt your hand when I was squeezing?" She's like, "No, I thought I was hurting you." Oh. And, and there's no secret in this. And I love that she's watching the development of Rey, and that's her, that's her Luke Skywalker. For me, it's so important that when she sees, someone like Rey being a hero, that it really resonates with her. She doesn't know it right now, but I know it does. And she's still at that point where like the Porgs are so awesome, and I think they're awesome too. But she's catching, she's getting the rest of it. And we talk about those mature moments. And I think any parent that takes their kid to see this movie or Rogue One, or really, why not any of the movies, to sit down afterwards and say, let's talk about what we just saw. That's so important. Yeah. And so, and there's some pretty heavy things that she asked a lot of questions about. And quite frankly, I said, Kaylee, I'm going to have to see it again to be able to answer that question. And I may not even be able to answer. Those may be questions that we just take into the next movie. And so I thought it was a great movie to take her to. Now, we talked about whether her 6-year-old sister will go to see this or not. And I'm thinking probably not. But I think she's right. She's right on that area. She went and saw Force Awakens with me, and we dealt with that. And we talked about sort of the big moments of that. And so I think she was ready, and she's 10 years old. So, I think it's up to each parent, of course. I mean, that's why we have the rating system. And that's why, I don't even know what the rating of this movie was. PG-13. So, parental guidance, I think it's all up to each individual parent. And, but I think my daughter was ready.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the main questions. What is this as far as for kids to see? I would have a hard time with it, because I guess as always, it would depend on how your child is and what they're used to, and obviously you speak with your kids and get them ready for stuff like that. And I like your story about your daughter, just you and your daughter having those moments. Like mm-hmm. This is the first Star Wars movie she's seen in theaters, correct?
Force Awakens.
Oh, Force Awakens. That's right. But I feel like this is just, that's obviously special, but you're going to remember that, you two sitting there like that. You're never going to lose the power of those moments. And that's, again, why movies and Star Wars just hit us so much. I think this, again, prevents such a canvas for us to dive into Star Wars in ways. I guess, here's the thing. When you look at The Last Jedi, it's not The Godfather, but it's more adult while still maintaining the nostalgia and the joy of Star Wars, but just taking it to another place. And Cory, you and I talked about this a little bit on the way home. There's a lot of humor in this thing. And talk to me about what you both thought of the humor in this.
Yeah. So one thing I want to equate it to is, and I got thinking about this too, even after we had parted, but there was a lot of humor that I felt was maybe written in to appease fans and just, I want to call them walk-in fans, people who are just like, Star Wars fans in general, and they're with their significant other or whatnot, what have you, and just, there to see a movie. So they're there to enjoy it and have a good time. It's right up there with some of the jokes we'll hear in like Avengers or some of the other superhero movies, because there's such heavy-handedness going on. They have to have something to ease the moment. Some of it, I don't want to say I felt forced, but I liked it. I guess I was a little over some of the. I guess there's two parts of me that liked it. Some of them felt a little bit like they were just trying to be funny in the moment because there was a lot going on and they needed something to catch their breath with. But maybe that's the right balance then, But again, I think it's up there. They have to make these jokes. They can't be serious the entire time, obviously, and get away with, fans coming off without, having a good time. I think it's up there with the Avengers type comedy-esque here and there. And it's weird to see in a Star Wars film because I don't think Star Wars is hilarious or as funny as or as it should be, I guess, in my own mind, in my own respect. Because I don't remember watching Empire Strikes Back and laughing out loud, So I don't know. It's a weird balance for me, I guess.
Yeah, I had similar feelings that you had, Corey. A lot of the levity was great. It was genuine. It was funny. Some of them were just situational that I don't even know that were, intended to be like a big laugh, but it just, the way it was presented was just authentic and enjoyable. And so it made me funny. But then there were other times when I didn't, how do I say this without, I didn't appreciate the humor. And don't get me wrong, it's not that I didn't like the humor. It's just because of the depth at where I was, the humor happened, and I just, it wasn't like, I was kind of like, okay, I swept that aside. And so it wasn't that it was ill-placed or anything like that. I wasn't prepared to laugh at that moment. And so when I say I didn't appreciate it, it's more, it's almost like, when someone tells a joke at a funeral or something, I just, I hear you, but I'm not ready to laugh at it yet.
Like every time I go into a cemetery, I always say people are dying to get into this place, and hardly anyone ever laughs.
Please, jeez.
See, I'm ready for that.
This is, I understand what you're saying, and I won't say what it is or who says it or what the circumstances are, but the opening scene, there's a run of jokes that are hysterical, but I think that's the vibe we're talking about. And I feel like there was a little bit of that sometimes with Finn in The Force Awakens, but gradually I just began to just sort of embrace it and say, you know what, that is different, but that's where Star Wars is now. And that's where modern audiences are now. And that's why I think this movie is brilliant, because they didn't go for the Tony Stark, jabs just to be clever and smarmy and funny. I mean, Tony Stark is brilliant, hilarious, but
right.
And then when you see Justice League, I don't know if you guys have seen Justice League, but that felt a little bit forced. That was forced. Mm-hmm. Now with this, every character moment, every moment of humor completely serves the characters and provides more characterization and context for these characters, where they're at emotionally and psychologically or personally. So I feel like they were all very exacting, almost surgically inserted to tell us more about the characters. And you don't see that a lot in any movie. So I'm very impressed with that aspect of it. I mean, think about everything that Luke does that's funny. And it's always, and I'm not going to say what they are, what happens, but it's always with purpose to a particular character. And it always tells you about their relationship. And I'd love that.
I can appreciate that comment. That's as I go back and I'm kind of doing snapshots of those moments that you're talking about. Yeah, I think you're spot on with that.
Is there anything else? I mean, I know we're gonna have our big review next week. Is there anything else that you want to say just for initial thoughts? How about this? Is there anything? And I guess we sort of talked about this. Is there anything that did not work for you as well? Because for me, it was Canto Bight, and I won't go into why. I mean, it was done, and what they were trying to do, they achieved, but that part was flat for me. But it didn't take away from my enjoyment of the film.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I guess I'm nitpicky. I guess here and there on certain things we kind of mentioned a little bit, but without going into too much detail, there was a certain point where I felt like it was missing something. And until we got to that point, I was like, is this all it's going to be? I felt a little bit let down, I guess. And maybe that's what we wanted to feel until, and I don't want to give it away. I mean, there was a certain point for me as a fan, I sitting in my chair, I felt a little let down. I want to say maybe 1/3 through the movie, or maybe it's one, I don't know. But something changes that. And then I just go from like 0 to 100 in a sense, because I guess I think I'm trying to track down all these things are being explained to us, and we're learning new things, and the story's progressing. And there's not a whole lot that I can stand out to me that I was like, I really didn't like that. I overall I think it was really great. And now we start discussing it, it helps me even appreciate it more too. I'm grateful for this conversation too, because I was I was really kind of, I maybe just the overall emotional impact I came away with at the end was one more pressing on me, I guess. Funny as it sounds, than I thought.
Yeah, I have to say, just first impression, first viewing, there's nothing really stood out as a disappointment. Dan, I see your point with the Canto Bight. I think I was so enthralled by Del Toro's character that maybe that's what kept it up for me. But no, nothing walking away, nothing jumps out as being a disappointment. I'm sure on multiple viewings I may come across something, but initially I thought it was brilliant.
So one thing that jumps out to me right away when I watched this film, I remember watching Force Awakens in that film, and I thought, like, man, I could watch this right away right now. I remember watching Rogue One and feeling that same way, thinking I want to watch Rogue One again, but I also want to watch A New Hope just to feel that, keep that storyline going. But with this one, I came away thinking, like, I don't know if I could watch this right away again right now. And I don't know what if I don't know.
I feel a little beat up by it. Yeah. I have the exact same feeling.
Yeah,
and I want to see it again, but not now.
No, I know. See, and that's the best problem ever. I've seen it twice already. And I'm going to see it twice in one day tomorrow. And this is great.
Is what you are.
I mean, it's for good reasons. I mean, taking students and hosting a really exciting event with Peter Wentworth-Shields and the dinner, and take my wife out to see Star Wars, and that's going to be great. But yeah, this is something that it's not like, how some people just will watch certain movies over and over again. I don't feel like this is what I'm going to want to do that with. And one of the reasons, besides the fact that it's heavy, is I want the wow moments to always be wow moments. And if I see them a lot, it won't be the same. That's just me, though. And they fell asleep.
No, I was just, I'm trying to think of something to say without spoiling. Yeah.
I know it's hard.
The other thing is my wife had mentioned we got home. She's like, man, that was a long film. I thought it was a long film. It was the runtime on it. What over 2.5 hours or so?
Yeah,
it was
2.5. Yeah,
it was just cruising. I mean, like, it was just large.
I agree. It's heavy. It changes everything, and it's the line at the end about something that Luke says, and sort of the direction. I thought, wow, they're doing this. I didn't think they were going to do this. And it's what we need. I didn't think we needed it, but to me, that's what we need. And we always say the future is bright, but boy, now not only is it bright, but it's unexplored. And I don't know that we ever were able to say that before. So I think it's very cool, and it's going to throw some people off. But I think I think the response is going to be gigantic. So thank you guys both. Of course, this was a great day. So much fun. I'm so happy I got to talk with you both about it. Next week, of course, we're going to dive into it in much more detail. So get your notes ready. It's going to be fun.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Peoria Riverfront Museum and our giant screen theater. My name is Renee Kerrigan. I'm our Vice President of Programs and Planetarium Director, and pretty big Star Wars nerd myself, so I'm pretty excited to have you all here tonight. Thank you for coming. Tonight, we are so honored to have a special guest here with us. We have Peter Wentworth-Shields, who came all the way from London originally, and a little bit more recently from Ohio, to speak to us tonight. And he is the Assistant Art Director on the original film, the original Star Wars film. So he's going to talk to us about his experience on that film. And he's going to be talking with our other special guest, Dan Zare, who hopefully some of you listened to on Coffee with Kenobi, that we're so happy to have tonight as well. So thank you for coming. I won't take up any more of your time, but I did want to mention, if you didn't get your bag of popcorn, they were still popping somewhere, so if you'd like it, you're welcome to go get some from the concession stand, and we'll have it for you. But let's turn the show over to our special guest.
Thank you so much. Everybody.
This is an amazing night because I think we talked about this before, but how many people have not yet seen The Last Jedi? Show of hands. Oh, that's great. And I can trust you'll be an excited audience that will clap and cheer, correct? Yeah. Perfect. Well, you're going to have a lot to clap and cheer about right now because we're here with Mr. Peter Wentworth-Shields, who is a legend in the Star Wars world. Peter, thanks so much for being at the Peoria Riverfront Museum for this amazing Star Wars experience.
My pleasure. How do I turn this on? Okay, my pleasure.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, you grew up in London, correct?
Yes, I did.
And so tell us about growing up and how that eventually led into the film business.
Well, I lived in London about a few years before World War II started. Then we moved out of London during World War II, which lasted 5 years. And then I decided on architecture as my career. And I studied at a place called the Architectural Association in London and qualified as an architect. There is a picture of the school that I went to, which you'll see. I was employed by a number of architects and decided that it was too boring for me. So I looked around for something a little more interesting, and the movie business was an obvious choice. And
who's that handsome guy right there?
And that's the first Star Wars poster that came out. And it was originally the Star Wars, of course. And
Peter, can you put the mic closer to your...
Sorry. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Can you hear? The original movie was the Star Wars, and then it was changed to just Star Wars. It sounded a little snappier. And, but this is actually a bumper sticker that was issued to the crew. It's much smaller than it's about this big. But that was when it was still the Star Wars. And that's a picture of me holding a book of stills from the movie. So just to go on with my personal history, my father was in the Royal Air Force during World War II, and these are some pictures of images of World War II, which you're probably familiar with. That's, of course, St. Paul's Cathedral during the Blitz. And my father was in charge of the Barrage Balloon Brigade in the RAF. These were balloons that were flown over buildings and ships to try and defer divers and bombers and fighters. They weren't very successful, in fact, because they were so easy to shoot down. And they exploded as soon as they were hit. So they did a lot of damage when they came. It wasn't terribly successful, but they were sort of a morale booster more than anything. That's Churchill, of course. And there's some children with policemen going. There were a lot of unexploded bombs around London, and they were extremely dangerous. And there may still be some there, even today.
Anyone want to buy a plane ticket after that? So you obviously, I mean, you're a man of film, a man of culture and worldly events. How much do you think what you saw growing up impacted you as a designer when you went into the film business?
Quite a bit, a lot, as a matter of fact. I went to a school which is right beside Westminster Abbey. And I was very, very influenced by being there amongst those very historic buildings. Just quickly, that's the school I went to in Bedford Square, London. This woman here was 2 years ahead of me, and her name is Denise Scott Brown, married to the architect Robert Peoria, who you may have heard of. And that's the drafting room at school. I don't know who that is. Okay, that covers, we can do the next. That's a Meteor jet fighter, which I believe was the very first pure jet fighter in existence, and it was built right at the very tail end of World War II.
Peter, this is actually a perfect image too, because this is obviously an aircraft, and you have helped design the cockpit, one of the most famous screen and cockpits of all time. And of course, I'm talking about the Millennium Falcon.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Tell me about the design of that, and how maybe somehow World War II aircraft did that impact that, or where did you come up with that amazing, iconic design?
Well, I have to admit that I didn't design it. It was really a combination of John Barry's work and sketch artists and so on. My job really was to produce blueprints, so it could be constructed by the workforce at the studios. They needed very accurately drawn blueprints so they could reproduce it perfectly. This is another movie I worked on. That's Vincent Price. You'll recognize him, I'm sure. The movie was made all on location in Norfolk, England. It was a extremely young director who antagonized Vincent Price to the point where he said, I'm not going to be bossed around I've made 80 movies in my career, and I'm not going to be told what to do by a young whippersnapper like you. But it turned out to be one of his best performances. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but it is a very, very interesting movie. It's about witch hunting in the Middle Ages. Quickly, that's my wife with Eisenhower. She was a Pan-American stewardess, and she was Pan-American was commissioned to fly the press plane, which followed the president everywhere he went, and still does, I think. There's Kennedy. Just a very quick thing which will make you all amazed. She was 2 cars behind Kennedy when he was shot. She heard the shots. That, of course, is Lyndon Johnson. That's just, Kennedy being shot. Okay. There she is with my son, William, when he was about 3 years old. And together we wrote a book about Harris Cliff, the pottery designer. Anybody heard of Harris Cliff? Yes? One. Okay. Now this is John Barry, the production designer that I worked with. These are some nice pictures of him. He was responsible, there's a picture of him with George Lucas looking at some location photographs. They were trying to find a place for they ended up in Tunisia doing the Sandcrawler. That was the only location they used. That's the front page of a book about Star Wars. There's Alec Guinness with George Lucas. George Lucas, look how young he is.
Let me ask you about George, because we're getting so close to seeing this new chapter in the Star Wars saga, and George Lucas created all this. He started all this with people like you helping him make this masterpiece. What was George Lucas like as a collaborator?
He was a very easy person to get along with. He was very communicated extremely well, knew pretty much what he wanted. A real perfectionist. He wanted it just right. I don't know, I think these are script pages with notes. He was a little disappointed in the first Star Wars because the special effects were so limited then. Of course, they've become sort of endless now. You can do just about anything, but he was rather upset by how uncrowded the scenes were. He wanted many more monsters and strange creatures wandering around, like in the bar scene, if you remember the bar scene. These are a couple of typical models, the kind of sketch models we made in the art department. they weren't for show. They were just purely to let the director feel the space and plan, the actors' movements and so on and so forth. This is a working drawing that I did. This is a typical blueprint that we did in the art department for the actual construction. They're very, very similar to architectural blueprints. Of course, the subject's totally different. But they have to be extremely accurate and carefully done. There's another typical sketch model. That's Mother's Kitchen in the first Star Wars.
Did you get to select what you were to design, or did they just say, hey, can you make this for us? How did that work? Yes, that's the finished kitchen. Yes, they pretty much gave us some very quick visual sketches and verbal instructions, and we sort of designed it as we went along, and George Lucas and so on would come in and look at it and say, I prefer it this way, that way. And of course, sets are very different from real buildings because you only build what the camera is going to see. It's just a waste of time and money to do more. That's the kitchen. I don't know who that is. That's in Peru.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
I promise.
Sorry about that.
No,
there's George and John looking at a model. He's down at sort of camera level. So you can see this plan his shots and actors. That's a funny picture. I think that's at Elstree Studios in London, where we worked. This is the brilliant sketch artist who did these fabulous early sketches before and while the sets were being designed and built. He worked mostly in Hollywood and things, and he did come over to England now and again, but he did most of these before the movie started shooting. That's a close-up model of the Millennium Falcon that I made. As you can see, it's a very sketchy, made mostly cardboard, balsa wood, paper, very quickly made.
Do you still have that, by the way? Because I would love to come over to your home.
I don't know. As a matter of fact, this is a fairly recent model that I made for a Star Wars fan in Spain. I get people from all over the world, and this guy wanted a model of the Millennium Falcon, the way we built it in the art department back in the 70s. So I reconstructed this model for him and sent it over to him. Money was no limit. It cost $800 to send it to Spain, plus the fees. He was a rich fan. Let me see. That's the working drawing for R2-D2. That's the final result. I'm not sure who that is, but I think the photograph is taken to show the scale. R2-D2 was mechanical. C-3PO had an actor inside, a very thin actor.
Who still was in the new movie, too. He's the only actor to be in all of the Star Wars films. Anthony Daniels.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow. Yes, he must be getting on.
We're getting so close to the start of the movie. Are there any other quick stories you'd like to share with us before we...
I think that's George Lucas's wife. I think, those were all George, a very young George Lucas. Gary Kurtz was about his age, I would think in his 30s, and I think he was the producer for the first three. There's George and John again, looking at a mask. I'm not sure who did this sketch. I think maybe John did that sketch. That's sort of fairly typical of this style, much looser and sort of faster than the more finished sketches.
Peter, we wish we had an hour or 2 hours to chat with you. This has been great. It's been way too fast, am I right? Way too fast. Does anyone have any questions for Peter before we start the film?
Any questions?
I can be like Oprah and walk around and bring the microphone. That might be kind of fun.
Have you got how much more time?
Oh, we have about maybe 2 minutes.
3 minutes? Okay.
What are you doing now?
Well, when I moved to America 40 years ago, my wife made me come and live here. And so I worked as an architect for a while, and then I started my own business in architectural model making and rendering, which I still do, and that turned out to be very successful.
Peter, we have I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir. We have a few questions up here for you.
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about working with Stanley Kubrick?
Oh, yes. I worked on Clockwork Orange in the art department, and that's where I met my wife. She was working for him, and we worked. He moved to England, I think, away from the Hollywood stress, really, and much preferred to work in a peaceful environment. He was extremely slow worker, an absolute perfectionist, and that's why his films took so long to make and were so expensive. 2001 went way over budget and took about 3 times longer than it should have. And the same with Clockwork Orange. Clockwork Orange was a bit of a flop to start with, and then the 60s generation, the swinger generation, took it over and blew it up into a sort of cult movie, and it became extremely successful and made a lot of money.
Peter, we have a question up here from Maddie, who has something she'd like to ask you. Go ahead, Maddie.
What is it like on a movie set?
She said, what is it like on a movie set? That is a great question. Thank you.
Very strange, is one answer. It's very different. Being on a set is very different from what you see on the screen, of course, as you can imagine. Like I say, they only build what the camera is going to see. So it's big holes. All the walls are usually movable. They can move in and out, backwards and forwards, take the roof off, take the windows out. Sometimes it's much easier to shoot a set in a studio than it is on location. Although that can be done too. Like I mentioned, Clockwork Orange was nearly all filmed on locations, which made it very limited in how the camera moves and so on and so forth. But it's cheaper, of course, much cheaper to film on location than a built set.
Let's have one more quick one. Go ahead, Sam. What's your name?
My name is Ian Darling. So I was wondering, what kind of materials do you use to make a movie set?
Mostly wood frames, plaster, walls. Probably if there are windows, they'd be plastic windows. All very temporary, quick. The emphasis is on speed. Quick, because stage space is so expensive. They want to get the set built quickly, shoot it, and then go on to the next one. So it's very sort of temporary materials, sort of wood frame, plasterboard, plastic, that kind of thing. And the builders are all very skilled and know exactly how to do it and so on. But does that help?
Yes.
Good. He's going to do that when he gets home. So, Peter, this has been, well, let's thank Peter Wentworth-Shields for his time and story. This has been great. So great. Peter, we thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all of you for being a part of this Star Wars dinner event. This was an incredible thing. We hope to continue throughout the years. There will be a lot of Star Wars movies. There will be a lot of other movies. And we know you're really excited, so be sure to
buckle up your movie seatbelts because this is one fantastic ride. And, by the way, when you want to think about Star Wars and talk about Star Wars and look at it from a deeper level, maybe laugh a little bit, I recommend a podcast called Coffee with Kenobi. I think you'll really enjoy it. Thank you so much for being here. Let's enjoy this movie.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here.